Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 8 Part 45 based on novel. So let's start. Those are the members of Ghost Blade Gate and Fire Cloud Sect. These two sects have quite a reputation within Eastern Xian region, however they have rather close ties with Yuan Gate. Although they can't be considered as vassals of Yuan Gate, they will mostly follow the Yuan Gate's lead for many matters. Looking at the present situation, Yin Xiaoxiao's expression sunk slightly before explaining to Lin Dong. Lin Dong faintly nodded before raising his head. He looked at the two groups approaching from a distance. Under the convergence of everyone's gazes, they finally arrived at a position that was not far from Lin Dong and the rest. A man dressed in black slowly walked out from the group of Ghost Blade sect disciples. A formidable and cold aura radiated from his body. His powerful presence was testament to the fact that he was an expert that had stepped into the 9 Yuan Nirvana stage. As the man dressed in black walked forward, a man dressed in red also walked out from the nearby group of Fire Cloud sect disciples with a grin on his face. As his fists loosened, a wave of heat spread outwards. My humble self is Meng Duan of Ghost Blade sect. Fire Cloud sect, Yang Hua. The two men walked out, smiling as they clasped their fists together and greeted Lin Dong and the rest. However, this was not a single trace of friendly intent within those smiles. "Is there something I can help you with?" asked Lin Dong casually with a flat expression on his face. "Ha ha, I'm sure that you understand why we have come." Yang Hua of Fire Cloud sect faintly smiled. Without beating around the bush, he directly said, "Brother Yuan Kang and the rest do not wish to see you all. Therefore he had sent us here to deliver his message. If there are any problems, settle them at that final place. Brother Yuan Kang and the rest are considerably merciful and don't want to preemptively take action. I believe that if you people leave this place and head for the final place earlier, perhaps you all might be able to smoothly leave Unique Devil City and avoid excessive losses," said Meng Duan, who also had a faint smile on his face. "This can be considered a rather good deal for you all. It's best to avoid the incident that happened in the last great sect competition." Upon hearing the remarks of the two men, the faces of the Dao sect disciples turned completely dark. This Yuan Gate was too arrogant. Not only had they said such things, they had not even bothered to send a Yuan Gate disciple and let someone else deliver their message in their place. One truly did not know what level of contempt they had for the Dao sect. Even Yin Xiaoxiao's face was erupting with anger at this matter, while a malicious fury had already surged up within the eyes of the nearby Wang Yang. If not for him forcefully controlling himself to the utmost degree, he might have already exploded with violence. Many thanks to the two of you for delivering the message. However, while the majority of the disciples' faces were dark, there was not a single trace of anger on Lin Dong's face. Instead, he merely smiled and replied. Upon hearing Lin Dong's reply, Yang Hua and Meng Duan grinned. Looks like this fellow was rather tactful. Stunned expressions appeared on the many faces of the surrounding crowd who had cast their attention at the three individuals. In the next moment, the gaze that they sent towards Lin Dong filled with disdain. However, just as Yang Hua and Meng Duan had assumed that the Dao sect disciples would be sensible, Lin Dong's tone suddenly took a complete turn as a sinister expression instantaneously erupted forth from the smile on his face. Could it be that those blockheads don't have legs and mouths? Lin Dong did not deliberately cover up the sinister and cold tone of his voice as it rang out. Hearing this, Yang Hua and Meng Duan's smiles instantly froze, while waves of disturbances erupted in the surroundings. "Brat, do not make the mistake of paying a price you can't afford just to flaunt your glib mouth." Yang Hua and Meng Duan's expressions darkened. It was likely that they had been infuriated by Lin Dong's mockery. "Trash like you don't have the qualifications to strut around in front of our Dao sect," Lin Dong replied. The chilling gaze in his eyes was as sharp as a blade. "Scram! You have guts." Yang Hua and Meng Duan were infuriated by Lin Dong's reply. They suddenly stepped forward as majestic Yuan power erupted out and surged towards Lin Dong, enveloping him. Upon seeing this, a cold glint flashed past Lin Dong's eyes, however he did not make any actions to defend. With a thought, a black glow suddenly shot out from with a group of Dao sect disciples behind him. The speed of the black glow was extremely swift and fierce. In the blink of an eye, it had already appeared in front of Yang Hua and Meng Duan. Death-seeking fool. Yang Hua and Meng Duan merely sneered in the face of this surprise attack. With a gush of majestic Yuan power, powerful palm forces unceremoniously swept towards the black silhouette. In response to the ferocious attacks from the two men, a pair of withered arms extended out from the black glow and directly collided with the two men's palm force. Bang bang. A deep and low sound rang out as the palms met each other. In the next instant, the sneers on Yang Hua and Meng Duan's faces instantly froze, before their faces turned completely flushed as they spurted a mouthful of blood. Their bodies violently shot backwards, gouging a long scar on the ground while cracks extended from both sides of the scar. The originally noisy surroundings was immediately silenced by this sight. Soon after, a series of low but tumultuous uproars scattered outwards. Countless gazes locked onto the black glowing figure who had sent two 9-yuan Nirvana stage experts flying with a single palm strike. Such a thing was hard to achieve even by the topmost outstanding disciples of the other sects. As gaze after gaze locked onto the black figure, they saw the black withered face. In the next instant, a series of startled voices rapidly rang out. Is that a demon corpse? Why does Dao sect have a demon corpse? Could it be that this demon corpse is controlled by them? How is this possible? Even Thousand Puppet sect would find it hard to control such a demon corpse. Also, Dao sect does not have such expertise. How did they manage to control it? Pockets of startled voices rapidly resounded across the sky, while quite a number of people stared at the demon corpse with astonished gazes. It was obvious that they knew what it was. Demon corpse. Upon seeing it, the sword sect disciples who had withdrawn earlier all gawked, especially Xueling. The pitying look on his face that was due to Dao sect not willing to leave instantly turned grave. He stared tenaciously at the demon corpse before taking a deep breath. From the looks of it, this was the same demon corpse that had chased after Dao sect earlier. Not only had it been dealt with by them, moreover, they had used some unknown method and taken control of it. Was it Lin Dong who did this? Thought Xueling as he stared at the slim figure, while his pupils contracted slightly. This fellow seemed to be one amongst the Dao sect disciples who had concealed his hand the deepest. No wonder Ying Xiaoxiao and Wang Yang would both listen to him at times. It actually is a demon corpse. At the Thousand Puppet sect area, those who were experts in refining puppets were looking at the demon corpse with astonished gazes. The gaze of the youth dressed in grey called Gui Li turned dignified and grave upon seeing the demon corpse. Looking once again at Lin Dong, there was a sliver of dread now present in his eyes. He knew just how hard it was to control this demon corpse. If you don't scram, then die. Within the uproar and commotion happening around him, Lin Dong faintly raised his head and looked at the alarmed faces of the Ghost Blade sect and Fire Cloud sect disciples before saying in a soft voice. Overwhelmed with shock, dumbstruck expressions appeared on the faces of the disciples of the two sects as they looked towards Yang Hua and Meng Duan who had suffered heavy injuries. In the next instant, they hurriedly carried the two of them away, cutting sorry figures as they scattered away. Looking at the two dejected groups leave, the entire area sank into silence once again. The development of this situation was truly somewhat unexpected. If you want to say something, come over and do it yourself. Scheming behind one's back is disgraceful. Contrary to the atmosphere which had quietened down, Lin Dong slowly raised his head as his eyes locked onto the direction of the Yuan Gate disciples, while his cold and frosty voice rang out. As his voice rang out, a disturbance occurred with the group of Yuan Gate disciples as ominous glints erupted from the eyes of quite a few of them. Bang! The disturbance lasted for a while till a sturdy and strong figure whose killing intent blotted the skies finally stood up slowly and turned around. Revealing the sinister and ruthless expression on his face, this person was indeed the Little Thunder King Lei Qian. Since you don't want the face I've given you and wish to seek death, I'll grant it to you all at this place. You trash that are unable to tell good from the bad, exclaimed Lei Qian fiercely. As Lei Qian spat out those words, two figures beside him stood up under the focus of the innumerable surrounding gazes. Just a single demon corpse has given you all so much confidence, huh? Wearing a blue robe, the little Yuan King Yuan Kang stared at Lin Dong before smiling faintly. Since that is the case, let me destroy it. Just as those words echoed out, an iron sword suddenly slid into his hand before slashing down gently. Bang! As the slash descended, the Yuan power of the area seemed to flare up as a sword aura that blotted the sky seemingly split apart the land as it slashed down furiously at the demon corpse at a speed that was inconceivable to the naked eye. Lin Dong was also caught within the radius of the sword aura. Lin Dong narrowed his eyes slightly as he stared at the approaching sword aura that was rapidly growing larger in his eyes. Just as he was about to take action, he suddenly turned his head towards another section of the sky, where a majestic grey light was present. Whizzing across the sky, it heavily collided with the sword aura, creating a loud sound that resounded out. Chen Gui. This is a grudge between our Yuan Gate and Dao sect. Why are you interfering? A majestic fluctuation erupted and swept outwards while some fluctuations appeared within the eyes of the little Yuan King Yuan Kang. In the next moment, a gloomy and cold voice rang out. Chen Gui? The fellow who is ranked first on the sect's wanted list. Why is he helping Dao sect? As Yuan Kang spoke those words, pockets of uproar started appearing in the surrounding area as expressions of extreme astonishment appeared on quite a few people's faces. While the entire area was in an uproar, a rainbow glow shot over from the distant skies before finally transforming into two figures. A sliver of doubt flashed past Lin Dong's eyes as he looked towards the figures in the air. In the next moment, as his gaze focused on the beautiful figure that was petite and familiar, his pupils instantly contracted. In that instant, an expression of extreme shock crawled up his face, something that Ying Xiaoxiao and the rest had never seen before. Heh, brother Lin Dong. Just as Ying Xiaoxiao and the rest were puzzled over Lin Dong's reaction, the figure in midair turned her body around, revealing an exceptionally exquisite and beautiful little face where a joyous smile was present. However, just as such a smile appeared on her face, she hurriedly restrained it. She had noticed that the shock on Lin Dong's face was withdrawing bit by bit. What substituted it was not the ecstasy of a brother and sister's reunion, but a furious shade that was caused by an excessive amount of shock. Qingtan, why are you here? Qingtan, what are you doing here? Lin Dong's voice was currently filled with both shock and anger. Amongst these two emotions was a slight but unconcealable fear, the kind of fear that arose when things suddenly went out of one's control. This was the first time Ying Xiaoxiao and Ying Huanhuan had seen Lin Dong in such a state. Immediately, they involuntarily turned their gazes towards the exceptionally pretty girl in the air. The young girl was about Ying Huanhuan's age and wore black clothes. She had a slim figure and her features were rather pretty, while her beautiful eyes seemed to be filled with spirit, as if there was a talking fairy within them. From the looks of it, this was Qingtan, who had left in a different manner than Lin Dong after he had left the Great Yang Empire. Behind her, a man stood high up in the sky. The undulations from the latter were rather powerful and his face was covered by half a ghost mask, giving him a slightly eerie aura. This unique appearance was not unfamiliar to Ying Xiaoxiao and the rest. He was number 1 on the Eastern Xian region's wanted list, Ghost Mask Chen Gui. For them, he could be considered an extremely famous character. Currently, the two people in the sky had evidently become the focal point of this area. Of course, more gazes were directed towards Ghost Mask Chen Gui. After all, the reputation of the number 1 name on the sect's wanted list was rather intimidating. In the air, the happy smile on Qingtan's face had clearly been scared away by Lin Dong. She hastily landed from the air and obediently stood before the latter, yet she did not dare to look at the Lin Dong's face. With her slightly bowed head, she looked just like an ignorant little girl who had been caught after secretly slipping out of the house. You. Lin Dong was somewhat dazed as he gazed at the young girl that stood before him. The face that was so familiar that it had practically been imprinted on his soul caused a strange feeling to gush out from the depths of his heart. For a time, all he could do was point at the young girl and mumble incoherently. Chen Gui had now also landed behind Qingtan. When he saw how obedient this junior sister disciple of his, that even his most stern master could do nothing about, had become, he was also somewhat taken aback. Soon after, he looked towards Lin Dong, whose expression was constantly fluctuating between anger and shock, wanting to say something but realized that it did not seem appropriate for him to speak. Hence, he could only continue on in this manner while standing behind Qingtan. "What have you done? Why are you here? You've left home." Lin Dong possessed a certain resistance towards shock after all. Thus, after a long time, he finally regained some of his wits as his alarmed and furious voice boomed out like a cannon. "Not really, Mum and Dad know that I've left." Qingtan's tiny hands were entangled together as she replied. "Why didn't you obediently stay in the Great Yang Empire? Why does a girl like you have to run out into the world?" Lin Dong angrily said. He was unable to imagine why an ignorant little girl would dare to enter a place like the Eastern Xian region that was filled with danger. Did she not realize that if something happened, both him and their parents would be unable to bear it? When he thought about the worst that could have happened, even someone like Lin Dong felt a little suffocated. He knew that he would truly go insane if that scenario became reality. "You could leave and go out into the world, why can't I do the same?" Qingtan raised her tiny face in an unfair manner. However, when she saw the fury that once again shrouded Lin Dong's forehead, she quickly pulled back as the little bit of courage that she had managed to gather instantly disappeared like smoke. "I also want to protect Mum, Dad and the rest. I can also become strong. It must be so tiring for you to try so hard by yourself. I also want to be of help to you. I no longer want to be like before, where I can only powerlessly stand and watch." The young girl's words clearly stunned Lin Dong for a moment. He gazed at the tiny face of the young girl that was filled with grievance and could not help but reply in a somewhat vexed manner, "Why foolishly worry about such things?" Though his tone was vexed, the fury on his forehead had started to fade a little. The young girl's words had stirred his emotions and made him feel a small bit of happiness. It seemed that the little girl from before had grown quite a bit. Qingtan's tiny mouth shrunk. However, the bright girl knew that now was not the time to contradict a Lin Dong that was about to explode with anger. "Mum and Dad know that you've come here." Lin Dong kneaded his somewhat aching head as he asked. Qingtan repeatedly nodded her head. "They've agreed?" Lin Dong asked again. Upon hearing this, Qingtan hesitated for a moment. Just as she was about to nod her head, she saw Lin Dong's expression suddenly turn stern. Immediately, she hung her head in defeat as she replied, "Mum does not agree, and we argued because of this." Just as the words left her mouth, Qingtan hastily shut her mouth. She looked at Lin Dong from the corner of her eyes and sure enough, she saw the face that had only just eased up a little once again darken. "Now that your wings have hardened, you even dare to argue with your mother." Lin Dong laughed in a chilling manner. Qingtan lowered her head as she mumbled, "Scold me if you must, but—" As she spoke, the young girl's eyes turned red. Soon after, she lifted her head and gazed upon the face that had grown increasingly mature and determined compared to 2 years ago, as she choked out a few words. "I missed you." The various expressions on Lin Dong's face finally froze due to these words. The young girl had followed in his footsteps and left the place where she could be as willful as she wanted, the home where she could make trouble as she pleased. All alone, she had similarly experienced various things. All of this was so that he no longer had to struggle in a manner that caused one's heart to ache. Lin Dong's throat trembled a little. Soon after, he slowly extended his hand and patted the young girl's head, his voice somewhat hoarse as he spoke, "You've grown up at last." After which, he laughed bitterly before continuing, "Forget it, I'll let you off this time." As his words fell, joy surfaced in the eyes of the young girl before him, as if she had suddenly been bestowed a great pardon. With a sweet smile, she reached out with her arms in an exceedingly natural manner and clung onto Lin Dong's arm like she had always done many years ago. When Qingtan clung onto Lin Dong's arm, a sly smile secretly appeared from the corners of her lips. However, just as this smile appeared, she sensed a bright pair of eyes staring at her. She lifted her head only to find Ying Huan seated behind with her jade-like hands atop the dark green zither. The latter's gaze was currently tightly fixed onto Qingtan and had clearly discovered her sly smile. Qingtan secretly stuck out her tongue before winking at Ying Huan. With those large eyes, she conveyed a message, "Don't expose what you know." Ying Huan could not help but feel like laughing. Looks like this girl called Qingtan understood Lin Dong very well. She even knew what method to use to pacify a Lin Dong who was almost about to explode with anger. However, Ying Huan could also tell that Qingtan's emotions from before were genuine. Ying Huan naturally did not plan on exposing Qingtan's sly actions. Hence, she winked at Qingtan and the two girls of similar age came to a certain consensus, perfectly concealed from the usually calm and prudent Lin Dong. Big brother Lin Dong, this is my senior brother disciple, Chen Gui. It's thanks to his escort that I was able to come out this time. Qingtan turned around and pointed at Chen Gui as she introduced him to Lin Dong with a smile. I am Lin Dong, many thanks to brother Chen, my sister has troubled you much. Lin Dong immediately clasped his hands together. His tone was extremely sincere and grateful. I do not deserve such praise, brother Lin Dong is too courteous. I have only done as my master has instructed. Upon seeing this, Chen Gui hastily clasped his hands together in response, causing Ying Xiaoxiao, Wang Yang and the rest to be a little taken aback. After all, Chen Gui was said to be an extremely eccentric and indifferent person, someone who would not be so easy to communicate with. Master? You've entered a sect? What sect is it? Lin Dong was a little taken aback. He quickly looked towards Qingtan and inquired. From the looks of it, he was afraid that Qingtan had entered a dubious sect. Our sect is not located in the eastern Xian region, but in the northern Xian region. Our sect is known as the Palace of Darkness. Has brother Lin Dong heard of it before? Chen Gui promptly explained. Palace of Darkness? Amazement flitted across Lin Dong's eyes, while he felt some shock in his heart. It was clear that he was not unfamiliar with this faction. Palace of Darkness, the overlord of the northern Xian region. If one were to talk about its reputation, it did not lose out to a titan like the Yuan Gate at all. How did you end up in the northern Xian region? Lin Dong was evidently rather stunned by the fact that Qingtan had joined the Palace of Darkness. While I was in the Great Yang Empire, an elder from the Palace of Darkness was following me in hopes that I would join the Palace of Darkness, Qingtan replied. Oh. Lin Dong slightly raised his eyebrows. He did not expect that Qingtan had already been taken notice of by the Palace of Darkness elder at that time. Both he and little Martin had not sensed anything. However, Lin Dong gently sighed in relief knowing that Qingtan had joined the Palace of Darkness. The Palace of Darkness could be considered an overlord of a region. Qingtan should be quite safe with them. These are my fellow Dao sect disciples. Lin Dong turned around and shrugged his shoulders at Ying Xiaoxiao and the rest as he chuckled. This is my sister, Qingtan. After completing his introductions, he gently patted his hands as he once again cast his gaze in the direction of the Yuan Gate disciples and grinned, his smile regaining its chilling aura. Qingtan, move back a little, I have to first take care of a small problem. The eyes of the entire place had gathered towards the area where Dao sect was. Clearly, a slight change that had suddenly occurred caused the current situation to change slightly. Although everyone were uncertain why that Chen Gui would intervene and help Dao sect, the situation was undoubtedly one where Dao sect had gained an extremely powerful helper. Faced with the rank number on the sect's wanted list, it was likely that even little Yuan King Yuan Kang would feel a little restraining fear. It is unexpected that even Chen Gui has appeared. Ling Qingzhu's eyes gazed into the distance. A slight fluctuation flashed across her eyes as she softly muttered. Who is that girl called Qingtan? Wu Kun asked in a somewhat surprised manner. From the looks of the situation, the girl in black seemed to have quite a deep relationship with Lin Dong. Chen Gui seemed to have intervened and aid Dao sect because of her. She seems to be big brother Lin Dong's younger sister. I have heard them mention it in the past. Su Ruo looked at Qingtan, who was extremely close with Lin Dong. Envy flashed deep within her eyes as she spoke. So it's like that, Wu Kun nodded slightly. Immediately, his eyes looked towards the direction of Yuan Gate. He said, although they have the help of Chen Gui, there is still some gap between the strength of Dao sect and Yuan Gate. This matter is becoming increasingly complicated. Lin Dong slowly stepped forward in front of the eyes from the entire place. After which, he looked towards the direction of Yuan Gate. A chilling light flowed within his eyes. This area does not exclusively belong to your Yuan Gate. Whether my Dao sect disciples wish to remain here is not something that your Yuan gate can decide. The eyes of little Yuan King Yuan Kang narrowed. A glint flashed through them like the edge of a blade. His finger gently slipped down the iron sword in his hand as he spoke in an apathetic manner. Don't tell me that you have the courage to provoke my Yuan gate just because you have gained a helper. What helper? If your Yuan gate wishes to fight, I will accompany you. Lin Dong spoke in a free and easy manner. What an arrogant tone. Someone like you actually dares to act arrogantly in front of us. Do you really think that you are almighty just because you have relied on a clever little trick to win once? Lei Qian's eyes were dark and stern as he sneered. Won't you know whether it is a clever little trick or not if you try again? Lin Dong smilingly said. Lei Qian's eyes became stern when he heard this provocation by Lin Dong. A murderous aura rose within his body. However, he was much more cautious this time around. His eyes immediately looked towards little Yuan King Yuan Kang. Yuan Kang narrowed his eyes and stared at Lin Dong. After which, he laughed faintly. Since someone wishes to seek his own humiliation, you should fulfill his wish, Lei Qian. A ferocious smile immediately emerged on Lei Qian's face when he heard this. Both of his fists slowly tightened as he strided forward and cried out, Lin Dong, since your Dao sect refuses to leave, I shall give you an opportunity. Rely on your own strength and step forward to battle me. If you win, my Yuan gate will not say any other unnecessary words. If you lose, you shall bring everyone from your Dao sect and swiftly get lost from this place. Do you dare to accept? Lei Qian's voice rumbled across the basin while being wrapped by his powerful Yuan power. It reverberated beside the ears of everyone present. After his experience from the previous time, Lei Qian had clearly become much smarter. He no longer restricted himself with his words. Moreover, he had directly specified a direct head-on fight. Additionally, he even had added, rely on your own strength. In this way, Lin Dong would be unable to use the demon corpse. Humph, the demon corpse is also controlled by Lin Dong. Why is it not considered his strength? Your skin is really thick. Ying Xiaoxiao immediately laughed coldly when she heard these words. Stop uttering nonsense. If you are unwilling, we engage in an all-out battle and see just who will emerge victorious in the end. Lei Qian smiled in a venomous manner. You? Ying Xiaoxiao felt fury in her heart when she saw how shameless Lei Qian had become. Before she could say anything, however, Lin Dong waved his hand gently and slowly stepped forward. The eyes from the entire place were immediately locked onto Lin Dong's body when he stepped out. From the looks of it, Lin Dong was actually really planning on accepting this challenge from Lei Qian. Lin Dong. There was a slight change on the faces of Ying Xiaoxiao and Wang Yang. Lin Dong might have forced Lei Qian to withdraw in a dejected manner the last time around, but he had only won through a trick. This time around, Lei Qian, who was going to go all out and would obviously not give Lin Dong such an opportunity. If Lin Dong was to take the initiative and give up the advantage of the demon corpse, how would he battle Lei Qian? Let me fight instead. A voice suddenly sounded behind Lin Dong when he stepped forward. After which, everyone was stunned to see Qingtan step forward. At this moment, her hand was holding a black scythe with a somewhat exaggerated appearance. That scythe was even larger than her entire body. Strange symbols were vaguely visible on the blade, while an unusually dark and cold sharp ripple spread out of it. The girl in black was holding the large black scythe in her hand. That appearance was quite comical and cute. Ying Xiaoxiao and the rest were stunned as they stared at Qingtan. After which, their eyes paused on the black scythe in her hand. They could vaguely sense a majestic ripple from the scythe. Evidently, this black scythe was a pure Yuan treasure. Lin Dong was also momentarily startled when Qingtan spoke. Immediately, he knitted his brows and spoke in a deep voice, go and stay in one corner. Although he could sense that the current Qingtan was no longer that little girl, who had become very weak after being tortured by the cold qi, he was still unwilling to see her step forward to fight with others while he was around. Oh! Qingtan, who was originally acting in a mighty manner, was directly beaten down by these words of Lin Dong. She could only pull back bitterly. Lindong, will it be all right? Ying Xiao hesitated and asked. Their Dao sect indeed hoped that they would not have to engage in a big battle with Yuan Gate here. However, if Lindong had to take such a risk, it might be better for them to truly engage in an all-out fight with the other party. Lindong shook his head slightly. After which, he slowly stepped forward. Those somewhat cold eyes were directly locked onto the ferociously smilingly Lei Qian in the distance. His voice was calm. I shall receive this challenge. A series of uproars suddenly sounded out in the basin after these words were heard. Clearly, everyone did not expect that Lindong would actually dare to directly abandon the advantage of the demon corpse and accept this challenge from Lei Qian head-on. Such an action is truly not wise. Wu Kun from Nine Heaven's Supreme Purity Palace had a surprised look on his face as he muttered. There will no longer be any fooling around like last time. Lei Qian will not give him even the slightest opportunity. He is seeking his own humiliation. He is not a fool. If he does not have the confidence, he will not easily accept the fight. Ling Qingzhu shook her head slowly. Her clear eyes looked towards the skinny figure that was walking out from amongst the Dao sect disciples while she softly said, "Oh." Wu Kun declined to comment when he heard Ling Qingzhu's words. Together with the demon corpse, Lindong might still have a chance against Lei Qian. However, on the precondition of not being able to use the demon corpse, Wu Kun was unable to think of what qualifications Lindong had to fight with Lei Qian. Ha ha, you have guts. The ferocious smile on Lei Qian's face immediately grew wider when he saw that Lindong actually dared to face him in battle. Moreover, there was an abnormally wild joy dancing within his eyes. His loss in unique Devil City had undoubtedly caused fury to rise within his heart. Now, he finally had the opportunity to personally get back his face. Although he had suffered a little at Lindong's hands due to his somewhat strange skill, Lei Qian had the confidence that he would definitely be able to cause Lindong to be unable to even retaliate should he go all out. This was his confidence as one of the three little kings of Yuan Gate. This time around, he wanted to completely crush Lindong under his feet in front of everyone. This video will end here.